Hello hipsters, Kris here from the podcast. Just hitting you up with a bit of information on our sponsors. We are very happy to say this season we are backed for the season by Kris and his team at 4elementswebdesign.co.uk. That's where you'll find them. You'll also find them on Twitter at 4elementsDES. What do 4Elements do? Well, if you're looking to build yourself the most hipsterish website possible, they are the guys for you. Branding, web design, marketing, video production, they're the four main elements, but they also look at so much more besides. Don't forget their tagline, beautiful websites, brands and strategic marketing solutions to take your business to the next level. Hit up Kris and his team, let them know that we sent you, and he might give you a little present. No promises, but what he will do is give you a fantastic website. So just a reminder, that is 4elementswebdesign.co.uk. And now, on with the show. Hello and ho, ho, ho. It's the Football Hipsters podcast holiday special. I am your host, Kris, and I've got three of our finest crew here today to have a very unscripted, unplanned podcast, which will hopefully just give you guys and girls something to listen to during the festive period. Now, as I say, off the top, we have no script, no set sort of running order or anything. We're just going to have a little chat. Try and cover a couple of the leagues that we usually speak about and get to some of the questions and topics that you lovely listeners have sent us in the meantime as well. We've got no Joel, unfortunately, this evening because we are recording this, believe it or not, on Christmas Eve. Bless. So Joel is out of action at the moment. And sadly, despite we promised and we built it all up, I'm afraid there is no John. Sad times. We really thought we'd be able to snare him for a short time, but unfortunately, this time of year, he's just been working solidly. So hello to John if he's listening to this. And I'm sure we'll be able to get him back at some point in the new year. Or we'll do a long overdue special that we're planning to do at some point as well. So there we go. But let's introduce who I have got with me. I have got Lana. Hello, Lana. Oh, she's run away already. Okay, so she might be...
I'm here.
Oh, you are there. Hello.
Hi, guys.
That's a good start, wasn't it? We've also got safe back to his home dwelling, Mr. Ross Bramble. Hello, Ross.
Good evening.
And we have the man behind the knobs. It's Mr. Josh Daw. Hello, Josh.
Hello, Kris. Full of Christmas spirit, as I'm sure we all are.
Oh, yes. It's the most wonderful time of the year, apparently. So, yes, thank you all for joining me today. As I appreciate it's Christmas Eve. It's a bit of a random time to record, but let's sort of kick off then. Josh, let's start with you, actually, because let's give our listeners, I think I put the tweet out yesterday with some lovely pictures. You went on your travels yesterday. Tell us all about Forest Green then. What was your experience like?
It was quite surreal. Yeah, I was up in that part of the country anyway, so I thought I'd nip in and get a bit of football from some of the Football League newcomers in Forest Green. It was a fairly enjoyable day. League 2 has definitely changed since my times at the Withdean Stadium. It's a lot warmer, a lot more hospitable, but yeah, overall it was good to see a different kind of football. I think Carlisle on their day were very good, and I think there is a little bit of annoyance in the fan base coming towards Forest Green Rovers because they are struggling at the moment. But otherwise, I think, yeah, in terms of the club, I really did enjoy my time there. I would just like to see them improve their food menu. As some people may or may not know, they are fully vegan as a club, but by vegan they mean they've only really got chips. So I was more hoping of something a little bit more exotic, like perhaps like a burrito or something, but no, it wasn't to be. But otherwise I thoroughly enjoyed it, although I did freeze my proverbials off. But that's part of English football when you're watching it on the 22nd of December or 23rd.
part of the experience, as
Absolutely.
it were. Yeah. 1-0 defeat to Carlisle, wasn't it? I think in
It
the end.
was. It arguably could have been more. I think the referee had certainly an interesting game. I was sitting. Well, let's put it this way: I might as well have been sitting on the bench. I was that close to the pitch, talking to the subs every so often. So really right in the thick of things. And I think the Forest Green fans that I was near certainly had some choice words for the referee, who I thought was certainly very interesting with his use of the rule book. But that's what happens at League Two. But otherwise, it was an enjoyable game. Part of me thought I could still go out there and do a job for them, but we'll leave that to the fact I came in on crutches, so we'll avoid that whole situation.
Not on your ankle right now, I
No,
don't think.
no, exactly. But
wouldn't
otherwise,
work well.
there were certainly some players to look out for. Jordan Stevens, who came on midway through the second half. I think the guy, must be on like day release from nursery, because he looked about 12, but he looks to have a really bright future. As did their right back, who's on loan from West Brom. It's Fitzwater. I think he was really impressive for me. But otherwise, it was a really interesting game to have a look, and always nice to see a live game from lower leagues. So if anybody, is at home with their parents at this time of year and's got a reason to get out of the house, on Boxing Day or the 27th, where that malaise kind of happens, go and have a look at your local team and support them, because you get some really decent football down there, and there's definitely some decent stories as well.
Yeah, they need your support at the end of the day. It keeps the money going through the turnstiles and keeps the leagues ticking by. Sadly, Plymouth are away at Milton Keynes on Boxing Day, so I won't be travelling all the way there, I'm afraid. Ross, let's have a quick chat to you then. Just in general, really. We'll come on to EFL in 2017 as a whole in a second, but good week for Championship football, wasn't there, in terms of the Carabao Cup upset, Bristol City dumping out Manchester United, who have had a bit of a week to forget. And then you witnessed a 2-2 draw between Sheffield United and Aston Villa, which was quite a thriller last night as well. So good week in terms of Championship or Championship representation should be said. Sorry, across the two competitions.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Christmas break is normally very good for the Championship anyway, and the rest of the EFL, because you normally get this 10-day run of fixtures on Sky. So hopefully, if there's anyone around that's got some free time over the Christmas break, they'll be able to tune in and catch up on some of the Championship, because like you say, some of the games this weekend were absolutely fabulous. I think on Friday it's Bristol City versus Wolves. Now Bristol City, I think they drew on the weekend with QPR. If they can pick themselves back up from that draw, because they, like you say, they had that game in midweek against Man United, and fantastic win that was. If they can pick themselves back up and they can get back to their best, that should be an absolute cracker on Friday. So if there's anyone looking for something to do, Bristol City versus Wolves should be an absolutely fabulous game. But yeah, no, the Championship is always good around the Christmas break. It gives you something to do. And for me, not just this break, but this year, the Championship's been absolutely fantastic because of the way Southampton have been going. So I certainly can't complain with some of the entertainment we got yesterday, especially the first 10-15 minutes of the Aston Villa game yesterday. Crazy fixture that was, and some beautiful goals inside 15 minutes. So it's the Championship that's keeping me going this year.
Yeah, it's been entertaining. As you know, I've been trying to watch a little bit more this season, and I've tried to stray away a bit from the European weekend games and have a look at some Championship games, or even some of the what I'd call dull Premier League evening games. I've tried to take in a few, and I've quite enjoyed it. None more so than that Bristol City winner in the last minute against Manchester United. That stadium just erupted, didn't it, at Ashton Gate on that moment. So fair play to them. As I say, we will come on to EFL in general in a second. Lana, you witnessed Juventus last night beating Roma. The Serie A title race is kind of our only one that we're banking on as a title race now, isn't it? Because it's all the other leagues seem to be over, which we'll touch on. But pleased for Juve, and I'm guessing you're pretty happy going into the winter break with Lyon as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased. It was a really good performance. Szczesny was really good. He has some really nice saves, and I still am a bit, 50-50 on him, considering I've watched him for Arsenal. But, you can't forget that he was really good last season as well before he made the switch to Juve. So if this is the heir to Buffon, I mean, you just got to get behind him. And so far, he's done really well in the games he started. I think he started the last 3, if I'm not mistaken. I think Buffon is still, in mourning after Italy not going to the World Cup. Sorry, Italy fans. Not sorry. But it was a good game. We also saw Inter losing, which gave us the opportunity to go 3 points clear as well, just to get that ground a bit of distance there. That was nice. Now it's just a matter of hoping Napoli, goes has a draw or loses a game, and they've been impressive as well. And I hope this continues, that we have this title race until the very end. Because it's been really interesting. I've been so impressed with some of the teams this season. Lazio, Atalanta's been really good as well. They beat Milan yesterday. And it's just all around been a really good Serie A season. So I hopefully, going forward, this will, they'll only get better. Teams will improve further down the table as well. So it should be a good, second half of the season coming up. I think we have games coming up this weekend, if I'm not next week. So, and then we go on a week or 10-day break. So that should be good as well.
Yeah, it's been definitely is the title race to look out for. And Lyon, are you confident you can? I think third is probably the target. Would that be fair? Maybe the Europa League run as well.
I would hope that they go for second. That would be my target. I don't think that they should settle for third. They're more than capable of getting second, which they've proven. They've beaten Marseille, they've beaten Monaco, they beat Saint-Etienne, 3 of the biggest teams in League One. And, with the PSG game, that was just pure unluck. That was so many factors going against them as well. I mean, they did score just at the wrong end. But I hope that they settle for second. Third wouldn't be bad. I just don't want them going out into playoff rounds. They also have a tough, picture in the Europa League, so we'll see how it goes. But I think a break is well earned for them right now. They've been so impressive, and Fekir had a small, dip in form, but he's, getting back as well. It's his first season back after, being out for so long, and it takes time to get back. And now not only is he, leading the team, he's a captain, and so much responsibility with such a young team. And you have to give, a shout out to Lopez as well, who was incredible against Marseille, who has been all season, and in my opinion, has been the best goalkeeper in League One. You've had breakthrough stars such as, Ndombele, Malcolm from Bordeaux, Hussam Aouar. So it's been an exciting League One season for me. If you don't include PSG, which most of us don't. It's been fun to watch Lyon this season, and I hope after the break that they'll continue their form, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It has been a decent season if you take PSG aside from the title race. But as I say, we could mention that in a number of leagues, which we'll probably just touch on briefly as well as we go along. But we'll start at home for a little bit of chat here, and we'll kind of break up our segments with a couple of questions and bits and bobs from you, the listeners, as well. So. Josh, let's just have a look at the Premier League then for a minute. I'll kind of rely on you and Ross a little bit here for a second, but Premier League, I suppose this particularly this season or this half season so far, is going to belong to Pep Guardiola and Manchester City, particularly as we go into the break after the most recent run of results where they're, what is it now? Was it 9? No, it's more than that. It's 12 points clear? 13 is it? Goodness me. 13 points clear of Manchester United. It's the biggest gap there's been at this stage of the season. Credit where credit's due. Is it the fact that the league is just, or other teams are just not able to compete? Is there still that stigma of the financial element, or are you sort of in the that the camp that says, well, they knew what they had to do in the summer, they brought in the players they needed, and now they're reaping the rewards?
I think it's a combination. I do think this is a bit of a freak run of results they've had, because they've had at least 3 or 4 games, where they've just about managed to scrape a win or even scrape a draw. We've seen in certain games, with the League Cup run they've had to push through that 2 consecutive rounds on penalties. So I think where we're looking at it from Pep Guardiola and the rest of the Premier League is not only are they having a freak season, but nobody could keep up with that kind of 17 straight victories that they've had in 19 games played. It's an obscene run that they're on at the moment, and it is a case of just no one can keep up. There are a lot of people now. I would say it's the majority of fans have already said it's it's already over. It's gone to Man City. I can't see Pep allowing his team to take their eye off the ball, to see them dropping 5 games. Really, for 5 losses is what they'd arguably need to throw away this to their nearest rivals, and you can easily see the teams below them losing a couple more games, especially against each other. But I'm not too sure that they'll land as an invincible. I think there's still some games that will come near the end of the season that could trip them up, but otherwise for their kind of 2017 that they've had, it's been absolutely superb. I think it was something that I wrote about for us probably midway this time last year regarding him and Conte, because Conte was having just a superb start of the season and was a case of wait till he gets his fullbacks in, and once he does that, then you'll see what Pep's about, because I think that was the problem he had last season, just the strength and depth of and quality of the fullbacks that he had. He just needed really to clear them out and bring in his own men, and with Walker, Danilo and Mendy coming in for Clichy, Sanya, Zabaleta and Kolarov all leaving. It's a fresh run of players coming in, and I think they're there, and I would expect them to take this title. It might be a little bit closer come the end of the season. Pep's teams do have a time where they do drop off. We saw it especially in the Bundesliga, where around about March or April, once they're progressing in other competitions, they'd kind of take their eye off the league with it all more or less won.
It's probably won by that point, surely.
Yeah. It's normally the issue.
With it about March-ish last time Pep was in Bundesliga, didn't they? Tied up by about end of March, start of April. It's officially done.
About then that he's got it sorted. So that's from the case of whether or not they can go the season completely unbeaten. I'm not so sure. I think they'll be looking at the Champions League at that point, and I think they can seriously progress in that competition, but I don't think they'll win it.
It would be absolutely my worst nightmare, but did we see the story last week of Manchester City apparently trying to talk him into signing a 4, 5, 6 year deal?
Yeah.
To try and build a Sir Alex Ferguson-esque dynasty.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I think that's Pep's style, because he's been in Barcelona for 3, and that apparently wore him out to the point where he had to take a break from football. He was at Bayern for 3 and then decided he needed a new challenge. I could see him doing it just to kind of, like I say, build the same kind of legacy that Sir Alex has, because he's got such a great admiration for him. But I'm not entirely sure that's Pep's style, personally. But then again, where does he go to next if Manchester City becomes boring? Yeah,
I think it was quite interesting with when he was at Barcelona. If I remember rightly, he was only signing 1 year deals as well.
Yeah,
while he was there,
rolling.
Yeah, just a rolling 1 year. So whether or not Manchester City want to put that in just to stop him going elsewhere, as rather a deterrent for other teams, because obviously if he's coming up to the end of his contract, well, you can see from an Arsenal fan's point of view what it's like when you've got playing staff that are running down their contract and the problems that causes with unnecessary headlines that can be distracting to the team and the fan base. So I think that's part of it. But if I remember rightly, during his sabbatical, he did offer to manage Brazil to the World Cup. So I think he still wants to take a national team on board. But whether or not that's the next immediate move, but otherwise I can't really see what kind of challenge he would look to go for, really.
There's talk of him managing the Catalan national side if that ever gets breakaway, or the Qatari side I saw recently as well. I saw that.
He could come to Serie A if he wants.
I think
Well,
so. Yeah,
that's-
it's probably the only world he hasn't conquered yet, really. Isn't
Yeah.
it? I mean, other than France, but I know PSG are very high on either Pochettino or Mourinho, and I'm not sure Pep's going to find too much joy. No disrespect to Liga, but it is a one-horse race at the moment, and it probably will be
True.
for the next 5 odd seasons. So I'm not sure how much joy Pep's going to get out of going to France and turning PSG into the best side in the world.
I'd love to see him at a team like Napoli, maybe even Juve or one of the Milan clubs, just to see how he would do.
And at the risk of upsetting our sort of Pep lovers, he's not the sort of manager that really fancies managing at a club that doesn't have unlimited assets or everything in place to aid his. So I can't see him dropping down a level two. I just can't. I think he's only going to go somewhere where there is big bucks and an opportunity.
Some very interesting stories this week about his apparent use of performance enhancers as well. I don't know if you all saw the tweet chain.
Yes, indeed.
I've actually come full circle with Pep now, and I think he's going to absolutely storm this, and he's probably going to storm the next couple of seasons with Man City. I think he's got it working, and it's nice to see him develop his style to fit the English game. But the stories of the apparent performance enhancers is very interesting, because the main one that got me is obviously had that fallout with the Bayern Munich medical staff, which we didn't really get any more details on. So a very interesting thread. I'm not saying I believe all of it, but something to bear in mind when you watch his style implement as quickly as it has, especially this season.
Something to chew over, isn't it? Absolutely, literally, maybe in some cases. Ross, just sticking with you, because we're going to try and just sort of pull out the main headliners really from each league rather than going through every team in a whole. But when you look at the chasing pack, has any stories come from that you sort of want to focus on as we close out 2017? I mean, we got Manchester United all that distance apart. They threw away a last-minute equaliser to Leicester City at time recording last night. Mourinho continues to cut I would say an unconvinced figure, shall we say. We've seen Tottenham go to new levels at the back end of last season and continue at this, even though they've had a few notable results recently, and Dele Alli struggling to keep his feet. And we've seen Liverpool kind of rebuild, Chelsea kind of disassemble, and Arsenal be Arsenal. Any of those particular clubs that you want to mention or bring up at all?
I'm not particularly fussed by Man United, because I'm pretty convinced that if we didn't have Pep Guardiola's Man City in the division, Man United would be top, and they'd probably be top by a good 5 or 6 points. I don't think they'd streak away with the league, but I think that being the second best in the division to Pep Guardiola, who happens to be managing your fiercest rival, casts Man United and Jose Mourinho in particular in a bad light, because he is a natural born winner and he only focuses on the first position in the league. But to see Manchester City streaking away with it in the form they are winds him up. And obviously the questions come in press conferences, he gets prickly and then it all explodes. So I'm not particularly worried about Man United. I think on an average season, they'd probably be clear at the top of the league, but circumstances have made it look a little different. Tottenham, I'm still a big fan of them in the direction they're going in, but this season, the move to Wembley, I mean, I think honestly, when we were talking about this time last year, we kind of expected half that team to be sold off to finance the stadium move, and that hasn't happened. So they should probably be happy with that and just take a mixed season of trying to show what they can do in the Champions League and maybe trying to snag fourth if they can. I think Pochettino, in the grand scheme of things, will take a wobbly season at Wembley over, a brilliant season or one that completely financially handicaps them for the next few, So Spurs I'm not too worried about. The two that interest me the most in terms of 2017, Chelsea probably for 2018, with the managerial situation there and cost of living in January and whatever else. But for me, it's probably Liverpool and Arsenal, because Liverpool have still got the same problems we were talking about this time last year. Klopp has actually mentioned it in the past couple of press conferences when it was a bit more exposed. The back line is still absolute trash, and they need to do something about it, and they haven't fixed it. And obviously, they had the episode with Van Dijk over the summer, which seemed to just put them off the buying defenders entirely. And then Arsenal have had a very, very strange 2017, because it was all kind of built up to be, this is going to be Wenger's goodbye. And especially as we turned into January, February kind of time, it started to feel more and more like, right, this is the time. And even ardent Arsene Wenger fans were saying, this kind of feels like the end now. And here we are at the end of 2017. He's still there, and he's got, 2 more years left to go on his new deal?
This one and next, yeah.
Yeah, it's very bizarre that Arsenal have gone this route. I kind of feel like, despite how many years they've had to prepare for it, when it finally came around and it finally started to feel like, right, this is it. They had no idea what to do, so they panicked and went, nope, we're sticking with you. And I'm hoping that what that means is, because they've passed that perfect opportunity to let him go, that now the cogs are turning and now they're planning for the future. You see the amount of scouts they're bringing in, and there's some very high profile names joining their scout department. I wonder if there's now some more forward planning going on, and I wonder if they're now putting things in place to say, right, let's start scouting some young talent so that when the next manager comes in, we have all these players lined up for him that he can get X, Y, and Z out of. I'm hoping that's what's happening, but I have a funny feeling that the management structure at Arsenal, the stakeholders and whatever else, I have a funny feeling they're the bigger problem. And unless they change, I can't see anything else happening. So they've had a very, very odd season, Arsenal. It's been interesting to follow. I don't see 2018 being much of a change for them in comparison to 2017. And I'm just hoping for their sake that the next time Arsene Wenger's contract comes around, they finally pull the trigger and say, right, it's probably time to part ways.
Yeah, it is. It's a very interesting period of time. As you rightly point out there, the changes in the backroom team seems to be a notable thing, and then the two biggest saleable assets seemingly likely to be sold or given away. So much.
Ozil, the past couple of games. I mean, I don't watch Arsenal as much as you guys do, clearly, but Ozil, the past couple of games, he seems to have stolen all the headlines, and I don't quite. Is he playing for a new contract? Do we reckon? Because
a move.
I mean, every single time I hear any conversation about Alexis Sanchez, it's he doesn't care, he's not running enough, he's not doing this, he's not doing that,
which is nonsense, by the way.
Whatever the criticism is, every time I hear a conversation about Sanchez, it's he wants to go in the summer and he's not playing for the shirt anymore. But when I hear about Ozil, it's all, wow, what performance! We need to tie this guy down. Is he playing for a new contract, or do we think that he's advertising himself?
I don't think he's actually changed.
No,
I'm going to put it that way. I think he's basically, the rest of the team around him at the moment is playing so badly that you can't criticise Ozil anymore, because it's always the thing at the moment that if Arsenal are playing badly, then Ozil is the scapegoat, irrespective of what he's actually done in the game. But I think at this moment in time, you cannot say that. That kind of almost lazy journalism is almost parted by the wayside at the moment, because there's other things that people are looking at, and the fact that Ozil has always been having good games, like creativity this season. I think he's at least first or second in the league for chance creation. I think it's either that or Kevin De Bruyne that's up there.
Lana was whispering to you there, Josh. I think so. I do you not have a theory, Josh? Do you not think maybe that I have this little theory recently. I don't know if you've noticed the Arsenal sort of media has been ramping up recently about the media team, I should say, about this. Mesut's greatest moments, and there's been a lot of sort of hinting that something's about to come. Do you not think maybe this is a very clever PR campaign, that he's actually agreed or signed a new deal, and this is maybe sort of now he's actually, if the player himself knows he's got the deal, for example, then that surely releases his behind the scenes stress, and he can just go out there and be the player he is. So do you think maybe we're about to see an announcement maybe in January that he is actually gonna stick around? Is there any credence to that? Or?
I think we've seen it with I think it was Arsene Wenger before, with one of his contract signings, that he'd actually signed it a while ago, but they were trying to link it to a good run in form.
Exactly.
To make it look like it was like a reward for the
positive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what most big clubs do. That's what Juve do. Juve usually announce it after a run of bad performances. That's what we did with Vidal's contract. That's when we lost when we went out in the Champions League to Galatasaray after that whole snow gate situation. That's when we announced both him and Pogba's deal. I think Ozil has extended his contract.
Yeah, if you look at what he's done in his personal life recently, so he's just getting married in the summer. He's bought a house in London, which is quite a hefty investment, and he looks to be settling down in London. So I would expect him to be staying. I think it's just a fact of, almost all the contract talks have kind of died in the media, and it's just Arsenal are going for it at the moment.
Yeah, it does seem like it's an interesting sort of an interesting set of clubs there, and obviously there's a lot of uncertainty about Chelsea and Conte as well, and as you mentioned, Man United, that all doesn't seem to be well there. As Ross mentioned, the situation with Spurs and their stadium, okay, nobody's gone yet, but as we mentioned earlier, Dele Alli's form and the fact that maybe Harry Kane might have sort of ambitions to crack something big time, winning something in the long run, maybe he might look at his futures. There's a lot going on.
They've got they did lose Kyle Walker, which, as good as Kieran Trippier is, he's certainly not as good as Kyle Walker is. He can put a better cross in, but in terms of how Spurs played last season, if you look at what Kyle Walker did, he would always hit the kind of byline, go right to the goal line, and then pull it back to that kind of penalty spot where he'd find someone like Dele Alli or Harry Kane. The Trippier doesn't really do that. He crosses it from deeper, because I don't think he's got the power to get past his man. I think he's certainly got the pace, but you've also got the Danny Rose situation. That was April of this year that he came out while he was injured. Players do get a little stir crazy during injuries and perhaps lose their head a little bit. But
national radio.
What he was saying. It was an exclusive interview that he did, saying that Spurs don't pay enough. So.
For a player who's been injured for a year and was on full wage.
Absolutely.
Really,
and it was a bit like, well, when you have a look at what he's paid in comparison to, say, players on the other side of North London, then their wage structure is outdated, seriously outdated. And the only thing that really keeps players at a club on low wages is success. That's why we've got, players like, when you have a look at Bayern Munich until recently, people were going, well, Theo Walcott's paid paid more than Lewandowski. Well, Lewandowski's not going to come here for more money if he's winning 3 trophies every season.
Exactly, and I often think as well, when the players have to take a bit of responsibility. I mean, this is no disrespect to Spurs, with taking my Arsenal hat off for a moment. If you signed for a club that is run by Daniel Levy, you know what you're joining. There's no two ways about it. Pochettino went in there knowing that he wouldn't get big bucks to spend on players, and he took that job on knowing that. And I think that's the same with Danny Rose. He signed there from, was it Sheffield? No, not Sheffield United. Leeds, wasn't it? Is it Leeds? Or am I completely that?
Couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
No, I thought it was. I thought it came through their youth system. It was Kyle Walker and Carl Norton.
Walker from Sheffield United, yeah,
and
you're
Norton,
right. Yeah.
Who's now at Swansea.
You are absolutely right. Yes, yeah, got my clubs mixed up there,
got your fullbacks mixed up.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, it's an interesting season for the top clubs. We should don't worry. I'm going to give you two both a chance to talk about your own clubs. I know Ross has got a lot to say, but just very briefly, can we just talk a little bit about some of the clubs that are down the bottom end? It's hard to really condense these, so I'm just literally going to take essentially the bottom 12 downwards. Ross, I'll start with you. Which clubs should be concerned? I mean, I know we're doing this kind of in a year as a whole, but as we stand here right now at the end of 2017, you got Swansea managerless, you got West Brom with Pardew in, but having seemingly no change. Bournemouth are sliding down alarmingly. West Ham is down there. Palace have steadied the ship, but are still not clear. Newcastle getting a big win yesterday at West Ham, which catapults them upwards, but they're not convincing yet with this takeover looming as well. Stoke fans have been very upset with Mark Hughes. Lots is going on. Which clubs would you want to pick out those? With regards to sort of looking at in as a whole as 2017, who would you worry about going into 2018?
I was about to say Swansea, but I think that depends a lot now on who they bring in, because if it's Pulis, then my mind changes entirely. Stories they're trying to look at Frank de Boer, and after his Crystal Palace stint, that could be a very risky one indeed. So I'm not entirely sure on that one. But if it's Pulis, then who knows? West Brom, I get the sinking feeling for West Brom now. I think if they had stuck with Pulis for the season and then changed in the summer, they may have had a better chance. But I'm just not convinced on Pardew coming in at this point. Was it 2 wins all season, which I think is the league lowest? So not entirely optimistic for their immediate future. Bournemouth, I still like too much to condemn them to relegation, but with Defoe out now for 10 weeks, they need to find someone in the new year that can put the ball in the back of the net, because Callum Wilson, I think Josh said to me earlier, is their highest goal scorer with 4, and he scored a hat-trick in one of those games. West Ham, difficult to know at this point because Moyes has got a bit more of a tune out of them. But then he opened his mouth and said something stupid midweek about how he could, manage any club in the world, and they ended up getting beaten on the weekend. Palace, I just don't fancy them at the moment, but that's mainly because it's Hodgson, and I just have a feeling with Hodgson after his England stint. But at the same time, he did very well at Fulham and at West Brom himself, didn't he? So, maybe he could be there for another couple of years and turn them around. Newcastle, I mean, a lot will depend on January if they can get that takeover done quickly, if they can invest. Stoke, I mean, they've got the worst defence in the league, haven't they? 40 goals conceded and only 22 scored. They probably squeak it, Stoke, but I would be stunned if Mark Hughes actually makes it all the way to the start of the 2018-2019 season. But the one that I'm looking at the most at the moment is Southampton. And I have an awful sinking feeling that I haven't had since the 2003-2004 season when we got relegated. So, yeah, I think we're in major trouble. And I think we are that team that we would always talk about around mid-season, where you look at it mid-table and say, if they're not careful, they're going to slide. And unfortunately, I can't get away from that sinking feeling with the Saints at the moment.
We'll pick that up then just before I go to Josh for the others that you haven't mentioned there. What's your how has it been for you 2017 with the Saints? Because obviously you had Claude Puel at the time, and obviously that didn't work out particularly well, even though it is now working for Leicester. I saw your tweet the other day and I thought it was bang on when you said people are Southampton fans so obsessed with what's going on with Puel at Leicester. It sometimes managers just don't fit structures, and it obviously didn't work at Southampton. It does work at Leicester, and that's life. But as a whole, Puel went out, and the change around in managership and how it's all set up. I mean, does it have the feeling of another sort of ending in tears situation at the moment? Is that what you're fearing at the moment based on what you've said there?
My personal feeling at the moment is we are currently witnessing a very slow decay of Southampton Football Club, and everything that we built ourselves on the past few seasons, going back to 2009 when Marcus Lieber first took us over and put in place all these structures to make sure that we would never go into administration again. It kind of feels like every single corner of everything he built is slowly decaying, and we are falling down the league at an incredible crawl, but one that I can see accelerating quite quickly if we don't pick up points over the Christmas break, which we haven't so far. Nothing feels right at the moment. The balance of the squad feels completely off. For all the crowing that they did over the summer, Les Reed and Ralph Kruger, our chairman and director of football, about how we're still on course to challenge for the Champions League and all this stuff, you just don't get the feeling at the moment that the club is in any way set up to challenge for that, because the last two managerial appointments haven't been good. Puel, I mean, great, we got 8th last season, but if you've heard me talk about Claude over the past season, you'll know it just didn't work. There was just so many issues with the fans connecting to him, with the style of play he was using, with the bizarre tactics, the over rotation, the complete waste of Europe. Nothing felt right. And great, the highlight of my year was probably going to Wembley and playing Man United. Obviously, we lost, didn't deserve to, but we did. That was probably the highlight, and it was a defeat at Wembley. There's nothing else that can even encroach on that. There's no big result I can remember. There's no incredible turnaround. There was no brilliant performance. There's been nothing for Southampton this year except Wembley. And Puel, great, he's doing fantastic at Leicester. I wish him well. He was a nice guy. He didn't work out here. You can clearly tell that the players he's got at Leicester just suit his style more than what he had here. And the board at Southampton have got a structure in place where they say, right, here's our blueprint, here's how we're going to play, let's put a manager in that can make us play that way. And they put Claude in, and it wasn't his way. So he had to make amends and change the style, and it just fell away with the fans. And then Pellegrino's come in. We dawdled over the summer and wasted the opportunity to get in Nuno Espirito or Marco Silva. He went to Wolves and Watford and now both doing brilliant things there. And we ended up picking Pellegrino, who I don't think he's a bad manager by any means, but I just think that some of the decisions he's made, I mean, the Huddersfield game on the weekend, we drew it 1-1, which was as good as a defeat considering the points we needed to stay up and out of that relegation area. He had both fullbacks injured or unavailable, Bertrand and Suarez, or Cedric, both out injured. So what did he do? He put a centre-back in Jack Stevens at right-back and completely refused to play Jeremy Pié. He's a right-back. Why aren't we playing him in the right position? And then clearly the game comes on. Huddersfield Town are absolutely no slouches. They hit us hard on the counter. They always attack down the right-hand side. They're making Jack Stevens look like a complete idiot. And when Jack does get forward, he can't put across him because it's not his game. He's a centre-back. You just look at these fundamental issues that Pellegrino has just either ignored or is continuing to press on with. and it just completely underlines everything that we know as a club. And for years we've been really clever. We've put the right players in the right positions. We've bought very well. Ryan Bertrand, no one was taking a chance on him. If they were, they were taking it on loan. We bought him in. He's been one of the best left backs in the country since we bought him in. We make smart acquisitions. We bring in smart managers, and everything just seems to click into place because that's the system we've got. But for Puel, it didn't work. He tried to muddle through it, and great, he did a patchwork job, but it obviously didn't connect with the fans. Maybe some of the fans didn't appreciate what he was doing. Pellegrino just doesn't seem to fundamentally buy into some of the things that we want, and some of his decisions just fly in the face of everything we've known for the past few seasons. So it just feels toxic from top to bottom, and a lot of the attention is now turned to the ownership, and has now said, well, if we've now got a new Chinese owner, why aren't we making more deals? Why aren't we investing more? Why aren't we seeing more players come in? Now, that's a blinkered argument because we haven't had a transfer window yet. But the looks of January is that it's only going to be outgoings. It looks like it's going to be for Virgil van Dijk going out because he was left out for no good reason on the weekend. Not injured, but he was left out of the squad entirely. So it just feels rancid from top to bottom. And like I say, I personally feel like we're watching Southampton Football Club decay. And I'm hoping that somewhere there can be a turnaround. But I don't. I think the big thing at the moment is that the fans have lost trust now in Les Reed, who has appointed 2 mediocre managers for our club, and let Koeman go and let Pochettino go. And the feeling now is that he has not got the bottle to make the decision that he needs to make, which is either replacing Pellegrino now or replacing him in the summer and completely reinvesting in the team. So I don't know. I do feel a sinking feeling, and I do worry about us going into the new year. But I also know that the structure is still good enough in the way that it's been since 2009, because it's got us out of League One and up into the Premier League and into a League Cup final and into Europe. Everything is there, but it just feels like we haven't invested. We haven't taken it seriously enough the past 2 seasons. And this rant has gone on long enough. But I'm worried. I'm worried for us in 2018. And I'm hoping there'll be a change either in the summer or in January to the playing squad that can light it back up and bring us up the league again. Because right now, this division is ripe for the taking. Someone can sneak 7th. And if Man City win the League Cup and the FA Cup, which they may very well do, then someone's getting into Europe. And right now, it seems like it's going to be Burnley. And for Southampton Football Club, it's like, well, how can Burnley do that? And when we can't, considering we're meant to be built for that position in the league, to be the club that's going to be there to grab your ankle as soon as you start wavering. We should be looking at the Arsenals and the Tottenhams, but right now we're looking more at the Swanseas and the Bournemouths, and the fear among the fan bases that there's, that we are among the 3 worst teams in the division right now, which I can't honestly argue against.
No, and this is why I love Unplanned podcasts, because you get podcast gold like that, passion, honesty from the heart about a club you follow. Josh, follow that. As we what we'll do now is we'll just talk a little bit of Brighton, because obviously they're a club close to your heart, and we can kind of transition that into a little bit of EFL talk as well. So Brighton, obviously one of the 3 promoted clubs this season, along with Huddersfield and Newcastle. How's it been at the Amex this season? Overall, pretty positive, I would imagine, given where you are currently and where the team's level-wise performing at.
Oh, you'd be surprised, Kris. Oh, you'd be surprised.
I'm personal, Josh. Of course I wouldn't be.
There is a lot of malcontent when Brighton don't win a game. I think it's that kind of transition that you have, obviously, in the Championship over, I think it was the last calendar year or something. We were the best team in terms of points haul across the seasons, but hadn't managed to get promoted in that time. So when you're expecting, a team to come out and win 75% of its matches, then when that kind of flips on its head, there's going to be a lot of people who, are going to be a little bit frustrated with what they're seeing. But to be fair, I'm surprised that we got 21 points on the board, especially with almost a debacle that I would call the summer transfer window, without getting a striker in. I think it's a problem across all 3 clubs at the South Coast, that really I think they were all looking to get in a goal scorer across the January window, the summer window, and only one of them really picked up the proper hot shot that was available in Jermaine Defoe. It annoys me wholeheartedly how much Eddie Howe has not managed to utilise Jermaine Defoe to his full potential. And the fact that he is now injured, I don't think Bournemouth would miss him too much because he wasn't getting enough goals for them anyway. This time last year for Sunderland, Defoe would have had easily more goals for them. So I am worried from that point of view what we can get up in, what we can pick up on in January. Hopefully a striker, because as much as I love Hamed, Murray has proved me wrong by getting goals in the division, more than I would expect. I think if you just get that goal scorer in, then Brighton will be very comfortable, because I think everywhere else on the pitch we've got a really, really settled team. And the rest of the acquisitions, although look shaky to begin with, I think Pascal Gross has been an incredible signing for Brighton. He cost peanuts in comparison to the other players that have come in. Davy Proper as well was a little bit nervous. I saw him on his debut live and he was very, very nervous, which is fair enough when you come in for a new team into a new division. But yeah, I think there's a couple of worries that you've got. Anthony Knockaert's form, he doesn't seem to be lighting up the division like we thought he would, but it's not the be all end all while we're still getting fairly decent results. But yeah, I would like to see a striker come in, and I think we would happily stay up, because I think there's certainly about 3 or 4 worse teams in this division. Swansea, barring a miracle, could be down. Another one they managed to get a goal scorer in Tammy Abraham, who was linked with Brighton, and it was his options were to pick between Swansea, Newcastle and Brighton, and he plumped for Swansea. Whether or not that was the best choice for him in the end, I have to see. But yeah, I think there's a lacking of goal scorers around this division at the moment, and I think everyone will be crying out for one in January, and hopefully Brighton have got something up their sleeve where they can get one in and they'll be able to hit the ground running.
Did you see that they were linked with Moussa Dembele this week?
Wow.
I did see they were
£20 million
linked with
move
Moussa
for Moussa
Dembele,
Dembele to Brighton.
and I would be very, very nervous about Moussa Dembele coming in. I know he's done it in the Championship, and by God did he do it at Fulham, but there's also that problem about Scottish football. You can send a player up there and he can look like an absolute world beater, and then you send him back down and he just disappears. It's like the old Anthony Stokes syndrome that Arsenal managed to send him up to, was it Celtic we sent him up to?
Yeah.
I think on loan. Scored a hatful of goals, then was sold to Sunderland. So, and then, his career is now at Hibs or down the lower leagues now. That's where I'd be worried. Same with Gary Hooper as well. I thought he'd come into the Premier League and transition really well, because he looked like one of the brightest strikers they had up there. But I would be very worried if we bring Dembele in. But it would be interesting, certainly interesting. I think we need someone a bit more powerful up front with the pace. Basically, we need someone exactly like Tom Hamed, but more clinical.
Not asking for much.
No.
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah.
Ross, you just had a quick point as well on Jermaine Defoe.
Yes, yeah. I wanted to bat this back to you, Josh, because I've listened to a lot of local radio these days because my internet's terrible in Reading, and the only way I can pick up the Saints game is local radio. But there's a lot of discussion on the Bournemouth side about Jermaine Defoe, and a lot of the pundits down here think that it's not so much that that Eddie Howe hasn't used Defoe properly. It's that the players that play around Jermaine Defoe have never played with a player as good as Jermaine Defoe and don't know how to play around him. Do you think there's an argument in that, or do you still think do you think the bigger problem is Eddie Howe?
That's very interesting to say that, because I think this Bournemouth team is very, very similar to the one that they came up with. There's not a huge amount of movement, isn't it? You've got a change in goalkeeper. The back four, other than Ake, is almost, they basically came up with that defence. You've got Jordan Ibe on the wing, but you still got Arter and Sermon, who they came up with. It could be a similar reason that they struggled around Jack Wilshere last season as well. But to be honest, I would expect, Jermaine Defoe looked like a shining light in a Sunderland team that had a lot worse players than this Bournemouth team. But yeah, I would be worried about the state of that team in general. And it is a bit of a damning indictment on Eddie Howe that he hasn't brought in players that know how to play with top class players like Jermaine Defoe. So I don't know where you feel on that one, whether or not you'd say it is the manager or it is the system that he's got.
I think it's a bit, but I mean, if I remember the story right, they were trying to keep hold of Wilshere in the summer until he made it clear that he wanted to stay with Arsenal. Now, if you'd had a core of Wilshere and Defoe in your side, I think that Bournemouth probably would have a lot more goals than they do at this point this season. I've listened to a couple of Bournemouth commentaries and picked up a few bits during the Southampton half times. And the commentators on there are all saying that Defoe's making these cutting runs and he's coming inside, and the players in midfield aren't noticing him. They just aren't seeing him because he's got this inbuilt striker's ability to see a run, and some of these players are still championship level and they're not seeing these runs. I think that's a damning indictment on the structure of the team. But like you say, there is also a bit of the manager at fault here, because if the manager can see that Defoe is making these kinds of runs and no one's following him, why isn't the manager then saying, Andrew Sermon or whoever it is in midfield, keep your eye on Jermaine, because you know he's going to be making these kinds of runs? It's a very interesting debate what's happening with Defoe at Bournemouth. I think he's picked the wrong move, Jermaine Defoe. I think there are other clubs that he could have gone to, but it feels like a very, very odd balance. It's a very interesting mix to watch, because you look at a guy like Callum Wilson, who can be one of the best English strikers we've got on his day, and he can fit in that team just fine, but they just can't seem to play around Jermaine Defoe, and they can't seem to make Wilson and Defoe work either as a pair. So it's very interesting, very, very interesting to see how he plays next time I get to watch Jermaine Defoe for 90 minutes. He'll be the one I keep my eye on, because I haven't seen Bournemouth since Southampton played them. I don't think Defoe played their full 90 there. But yeah, it was a very interesting debate that I was listening to on the radio about maybe it's just the players don't know how to play with a team or a player as good as Jermaine Defoe. And ultimately, that comes down to either the manager not coaching them to be better with these kinds of players, or the manager for not bringing in more quality players to work around players like Defoe.
Yeah, I suppose the difference between him and Wilson is Wilson will carry a ball as well. Defoe is very much he will have he'll have three touches and then the ball's gone, and that's it, and it'll be in the back of the net. You need to feed him rather than Wilson in the kind of games that the 3 goals that he got against, it was Huddersfield, wasn't it, earlier in this couple of weeks ago or so. Most of those were almost self-created, or just balls in behind that he can run onto. Defoe doesn't really have the pace, and it's kind of difficult to play someone in behind with the kind of slow build-up that you get from a Bournemouth or even an Arsenal. If you look at how Arsenal were looking at their strikers, they generally won't go in behind because the pace of the build-up is so slow. There isn't any space behind anymore. That's got to be a very quick hit to get someone in behind. But yeah, I'm really not too sure on whether or not it is Defoe that is technically at fault, because if, as you said, Callum Wilson's got 4 goals for them, and you'd be shocked to say that Defoe at this time of the season hasn't already notched at least 6 or 7 in that, because he has played most of the season as well.
It's whether it's the right move, isn't it? That's as you say. That's the key thing. It is an interesting one that will be something that we'll take a look at of the second half of the season, depending on when he gets fit, of course. But we shall see. We've gone a little bit longer than normal, but I thought we'll just let it flow. So I do want to have a quick touch on some EFL bits and bobs before we do a quick lap of Europe. So I'll go back to you, Ross, on this one. Bring Josh in a little bit as well. What's the general sort of feeling been in terms of EFL in 2017? I know, Ross, you've always championed the Championship and indeed the lower leagues. It's been quite a competitive Championship season thus far. Lots of new sort of acquisitions of teams, lots of new owners, etc. Wolves probably being the obvious one. Sort of clubs like Leeds are back on the up. What's your thoughts been on sort of EFL this calendar year?
Well, the Championship, I think, has been absolutely brilliant this season, the 2017-28 season. I think that the back end of the Championship of the 2016-2017 season, the title race, I don't want to say it got dull, but it did kind of condense, and you only had Newcastle and Brighton kind of exchanging first and second until the end of the season. But we kind of knew where the title was going there. I mean, you could make the same kind of argument with the Championship this year, because Wolves have just been absolutely staggeringly good, better than I think anyone thought they would be. But at the same time, you look at the positions below them, and last year we kind of knew third to fourth, or third to fifth, I should say, and then it was only really sixth. But this year, the Championship is just balmy. You look at the table now, and I haven't looked at the Championship table for about a week. And looking at it now, I mean, it's just strange to see all these teams moving up and down, because you've now got Derby County up in third, which I didn't even realise they'd gotten that high. I thought they were somewhere down around sixth. Bristol City still in fourth. I mean, who would have predicted Bristol City to even been in the top six, let alone to now be fourth? Leeds have only just snuck back into the playoffs. Aston Villa are in sixth. I mean, Sheffield United have come down all the way from second, and they're on this terrible winless run. Preston North End are up there. Middlesbrough are in ninth, and they've just canned their manager, Gary Monk. Ipswich down in 10th. Fulham still languishing in 11th. You go even lower than that, you've got Reading all the way down in 14th. Sheffield Wednesday in 15th, and they've just canned their manager. Norwich down in 16th. It's just, I love this division. I just absolutely love this division. You look at this league, and it's just ass backwards everywhere you look. I mean, the bottom three at the moment, you've got Birmingham City bottom, which, I mean, they've not been great. I mean, and they reap exactly what they sowed when they got rid of Gary Rowett. But to see them bottom is bizarre. And Bottom Wanderers are now off the bottom, and they were one of the worst teams I've ever seen in the Championship when they started out. Sunderland are off the bottom, and they're only a point off of safety now. You know, it's just absolutely fantastic, the Championship. And like I said earlier, if you get the chance to see some of the winter games over the Christmas break, then absolutely give it a go. I mean, like I said earlier, the Bristol City Wolves game should be an absolute cracker. I know I've now cursed it, but it should be. And then Leagues 1 and League 2. I mean, I think that one of the most exciting leagues I got to follow this calendar year was the end of the League 2 season. I don't know how well you remember it, Kris, but to have Portsmouth top of the division for only 41 minutes this season and to still win the division was crazy. And I think nearly every single week we were going through the results of the way the table had changed, and the playoff places were changing so quickly and so often. And by I think we still had 2 weeks to go when there were still 7 teams involved in the playoff chase. League 2 was absolutely fantastic this year, and probably one of the best divisions to follow for the chasing pack and the title race in Europe, frankly. League 1, League 1 has not been the most exciting for me. I think there have been bigger divisions, but you still look at the kind of talent that have now dropped into it. You've got Blackburn Rovers in League 1, the first Premier League winners to end up in League 1. I mean, the EFL in general, I know I say this every time, but the EFL in general is just chock full of brilliant teams and brilliant stories that get completely overlooked. And I'm hoping that some of our listeners will have picked up on some of them and gone, wow, these divisions are really underrated, because every single week, especially in the Championship, there's just things and results and table positions that change or that occur that you never saw coming. And the Championship is the reason that I still come on every week when Southampton get absolutely trashed and give me hell for the entire weekend because we've been so poor. I go and turn on a Championship game, and I just remember why I love the sport. So I'm hoping that anyone that gets to pick it up this season will have seen some of that as well, because some of the fixtures we've had, some of the performances, and some of the teams that we've seen. I mean, arguably, Huddersfield, Brighton have been 2 of the best Championship teams we've ever seen, and they didn't even win the bloody league. And now we've got Wolverhampton Wanderers, who are, again, one of the best teams we've ever seen in the Championship, and they are storming away with it. And then you've got a team like Cardiff, who were almost relegated last season, now they're second. It's a fantastic league, and I think even in its worst year, the Championship will always be the highlight of my year. It's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, well said. And Josh, if there was ever a title race to look at, it's probably weirdly the English National League South. I don't know if you've seen this, but at the close of play of this year, you've got Dartford top of the league on 39 points, along with Havant and Waterlooville, Chelmsford, Braintree, Hampton and Richmond all on 39 points, with Hemel Hempstead 36, Truro City 36 and St Albans 36. Now that is a title race. Anything you want to add before we give Lana some time to shine in Europe on the EFL or championship season so far?
Yeah, I'm not sure how you really follow Ross after that, to be honest. Yeah, I would almost echo everything. I think League 2 has had a bit of a switch for this season. I think League 1 will be the where to look out for, really. Wigan are 4 points clear on there, but you had Shrewsbury, who almost went down last season, to then have an unbeaten run of, I think it was 19 games or so in the division. But League 2, you've got Luton Town, who are just absolutely running away with it. When I was at Forest Green yesterday, they were all saying that when Luton came here, they only lost 2-0, but it could easily have been a cricket score. That they're just by far and away the best team in the division. And I would expect Nathan Jones to be taking that team up. So I'm not sure there'll be a huge amount of a race there, but obviously once you've got playoffs involved as well, then it does allow the kind of a lot more jostling, should we say, when it comes to getting into position for the final couple of games in the season. But I really do expect this season to be big, but I think League One is the one to look at this year.
Yeah, it's been fun. It has definitely been some fun. Okay, right. We're going to just do a little bit of a chat with Lana for a bit now then, so she doesn't fall asleep. We're going to talk a little bit about Europe. Now, obviously, there's two leagues we don't follow closely when we haven't got people on, specifically Germany and, of course, Spain when Joel's not here. But I'll just kind of do a very brief overview that obviously in Spain we had El Clasico yesterday. I think it's safe to say that Barcelona came out on top with a 3-0 victory. In a largely one-sided affair, particularly second half. Barcelona now extending their lead at the top of La Liga. Same games played with Atletico, yet 9 points clear. So I think it's fairly good chance now that you can put your money on Barcelona to win La Liga, and of course they'll be focused on the Champions League as well.
Didn't Messi break 5 records in that game?
I did read something about this. Yes,
it's most assists in an El Clasico and most assists for one team, most goals for one team, or something like that. But he broke 5 records in one game. Incredible.
He's quite good. That lad. And there was a story going around today as well, Ross, wasn't there, about the Valencia coach and a ball or a boar or something?
Yeah. He collided with a boar in his car and he's been hospitalised. I think they've sent him home. I think it's kind of are you all right? Yeah, off you go then. But he collided with a boar as he was driving home. So
interesting Christmas story. And of course the coach Edgar Berizzo, the Sevilla manager, sacked this week as well. Really surprised by that after his. I know you can't keep someone in a job just because of their health issues, but in light of that, and I think they're fifth.
I don't follow La Liga as you well know, but aren't they like 5th or 4th in the division after a transitional period over the summer?
Yeah, they lost Monchi. Yeah,
seems absolutely crazy. I mean, as a kind of Lille follower, I do kind of wonder if Lille should have held off on Galtier for another couple of weeks and kind of snagged that guy, because it sounds like he did a brilliant job in bizarre circumstances, sacked him.
Yeah, it is really, really strange. Really, really odd one, that one. But he's gone. And in terms of the rest of the table, I mean, Valencia have been obviously the story of the season so far. Up there in third on 34 points. We've seen Bilbao have a mixed season down there in 12th. Sociedad, after a really good start, are back down in 9th. Eibar continue to surprise a lot of people who are cruising away in 7th place. We said about Las Palmas being entertaining last season. This season, really not so. And they're bottom of the table and look like they're heading to the Segunda. Malaga also in a similar fight down there, as are the two Deportivo clubs, La Coruña and Alaves, both struggling down at the bottom. And overall for La Liga this season, it's been, I think it's not been a standout season. I think Joel has said the same. It's been kind of consistently straightforward almost for the big clubs, and it's just there hasn't been any huge standout results, and I think a lot of the emphasis is being put on what's happening at Madrid and how many players they potentially need to bring in. Well, we've heard that before. Barcelona very similar, going through a transitional phase, but nevertheless, even though not playing maybe what you call classic Barcelona, they're still top and comfortable. The Simeone turnaround at Atletico, is he going, is he staying? The Anton Griezmann stuff that's going on, less said about that the better. It seems to have been a season that just hasn't quite captured a lot of people's imaginations in Spain this season overall, other than of course people who follow it closely. And I think the same could be said of Germany as well, who got off to a good start for Borussia Dortmund and Peter Bosch. That all fell away. He was of course dismissed, leaving Jupp Heynckes to come back in on a white horse to clean up after Carlo Ancelotti went a bit sour at Bayern Munich, who now clearly are going to win Bundesliga yet again. I don't think it's any surprise for me to say that, but they're 11 points clear going into the winter break over Schalke, who are probably a surprise story of the season, up there in second place. Leverkusen also resurgent in fourth. RB Leipzig finished the year out of the top four. They're down in fifth. And Borussia Dortmund's last 2 wins under the new coach Peter Stöger, who came in, of course, from the bottom place Cologne, seems to have steadied the ship a little bit, and they've crept back up to third. And then you've still got some of the big clubs down at the bottom. So Cologne look doomed on 6 points. Hamburg, Werder Bremen, Stuttgart, Wolfsburg, all still struggling down at the wrong end of the table. And then sort of Mainz and Freiburg, Mainz and Stuttgart in there. I think it's overall in Germany, again, it's not been a stellar season. There's been some very, very good games. The highlight game in the snow between Hanover and Freiburg recently sort of echoes the fact there are some really high-profile games in Germany, some really high-scoring games and really entertaining games. But it's sadly the lack of a title race, which seems to be on the forefront of everyone's mind at the moment. So, yeah, not exactly stellar seasons in Spain and Germany to this point. But let's bring Lana in and talk a little bit of France and Italy. Should we start in Italy, Lana, and sort of see what's going on there? So you've mentioned Juventus's win over Roma this season. Italy's probably the country of the Big Five leagues that has the title race, as you mentioned before. What sort of things have stood out to you in 2017? I'm sure you want to talk a bit of Milan as well in that.
Yeah, sorry I fell asleep for a while.
Thanks.
Sorry, Josh, for once.
This is why you get your own segment.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you reckon? What's been going on in Serie A? What's really gripped you?
I think it's been a year of, ups and downs. Probably more ups than downs for most of the clubs. If you don't count Milan, of course. We saw Juve going to the final of the Champions League, losing again. We won the double. We saw players leaving. Buffon announcing this would be his last season. Not getting the necessary signings. We saw Lazio having a great summer transfer. Did really well. We've seen it now in the league. Milan, I think the biggest shock of the year must have been Bonucci to Milan. I don't think anyone saw that coming. And it's also been a surprise to see just how badly he's been doing in Milan in general. They've just been a total mess. Inter has been surprising considering how they, finished last season. Napoli continuing their really great form. Roma lurking in the background. I think this season has been more for, giving credit to Lazio and Atalanta, who've been so entertaining to watch. And as we've mentioned before, I think this has been the most exciting season in a very, very long time. And I would also say it's been the most entertaining league to watch for neutrals, because you never know what could happen, Benevento taking points against Milan, Juve losing to Sampdoria and then going on to beat Napoli. It's just been so unpredictable. And I think that's what's been so great about this league, that we all assumed Juve would walk it as they have the previous 5 seasons. And then you see us being second now, with Napoli potentially going on to win the league. So it's been, highlights and downlights as well. But overall, I've enjoyed it. Summer transfers aside, I don't have much to complain about, except the fact that Blaise Matuidi plays for my club and Liso plays for Bayern. But
can't have it all. No. Who do you think of the Italian clubs has got the most likely opportunity to progress in Europe, either Europa or Champions League? Because that's going to be focused for quite a few after Christmas as well.
I think Atalanta could potentially go furthest. And, I'm talking both competitions. I think that, as we mentioned in the last podcast, not enough credit is given. I think people are being more like, oh, this is a fluke, but they are so good. I don't know if you guys watched the game against Milan yesterday. They were incredible. And yeah, I know people will say, but it's Milan, they've been shit, but still to, beat them and keep a clean sheet. And they have such an exciting team as well. I just hope that, coming to the summer, that they keep their current squad and add to it so they can go even further. Who knows? They might potentially go for the Champions League as well if they actually go on to win the Europa League, which they have a huge potential in doing.
Yeah, Papu Gomez as well. They have Papu Gomez. I mean, that says it all, doesn't it? But yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Milan definitely been the basket case. The resurgence of Inter this season, which I don't think even people like myself who follow them really saw coming. You've got the Napoli, Juve, Inter, Roma kind of four-way. It's probably becoming more of a three-way, I think, to be honest, with Roma just outside that group. But Lazio resurgent this season up in fifth. Samp mentioned terrible run of form for them recently, but over the season they've been very, very good. Fiorentina, Torino and Milan, probably the big three disappointments to this point.
Especially Torino.
Yeah, really have.
Considering how well they did
in
the past, and then to just
fall away.
Yeah.
I have, yeah. It's been a little bit of a surprise for them. Same Sassuolo, 3 straight wins, much needed. Obviously, they beat Inter Milan yesterday, huge win for them. They'd had a pretty poor season up to that point, but they're back up the table. And then we say Benevento with just their solitary point this season. Verona and Spal, Crotone, Cagliari, all looking over their shoulders, and Genoa, to be fair. So it's been a mixed bag in Italy this season, but certainly the most close title race. Which slides us into France, which we should have a little chat about as well. We mentioned your beloved Lyon, but we have to talk a little bit about what else is going on in France. PSG are clearly far and away the club that is going to win Ligue 1 this season. But any other stories sort of really stood out for you over the course of the season? Sort of return to form of Marseille, Nice's staggering run of results of late, catapulting them at the season. Strasbourg have been incredible. Monaco have been awful in Europe, but good in Ligue 1. What's sort of taken your fancy?
I think that Amiens has been the surprise team of the season. I don't think many would have thought that they would be sitting comfortably in 13th place. The fact that Saint-Etienne and Lille are in, Lille is in relegation zone. Saint-Etienne is 1 point away from being in that zone as well, considering Lille and with the project they had this summer. It's just a shock to see how terrible they've been this season. I mean, yes, they won against Lyon because, it's a typical Lyon thing to do, to lose to a relegation side. But, we can understand that Angers, Metz are in relegation, but Lille, Toulouse is 17th. They're, level on points with Lille as well. Saint-Etienne is 1 point ahead, Bordeaux as well. So, these are big clubs who, especially Saint-Etienne is the biggest club in France, and they potentially could go on to be relegated, which would be glorious, but I doubt they'll be relegated because then, it won't be any Rhone derbies next season, which would be really bad as well. But, I'm trying to look at it from an objective perspective and be like, I hope they don't get relegated. Just, solely because Rhone Derby is probably the biggest derby in France from, a rivalry point of view. But at the same time, it would be fun to watch them get relegated.
No bias.
Not at all. I think also Monaco performing so badly as they have, considering last season, yes, they lost players, but they also brought in good quality signings as replacements. But in Europe, they've been a real huge disappointment. And it's just sad to watch because I really enjoyed them last season. They even played Juve, and we were lucky to, go through. And seeing how they just dropped completely this season, it's just a shame because you had such high hopes, and you had hoped that they would, continue their form in the league and try to rival PSG for the title, but it's like they just handed it on a silver platter and was like, here you go. We were just a one-season wonder.
Question for you though, Lana.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's officially gone yet, but I know Bielsa is either on his way or has gone. But Galtier, I thought was a really odd appointment. I don't know if that's done yet, but I know it's certainly in principle. Galtier to Lille, is that good or bad? Because I have a funny feeling that as a manager, he'll probably get them to probably mid-table, or maybe even push them for 8th. But I think his style isn't exactly what Lille are after.
Yeah, I agree. I think that someone as Remy Gard, who, is famously known to build a team of youth players and, get so much success out of them, not necessarily in terms of trophies, but in terms of styling play and how they do, because we saw it with Leon and, how he brought through the likes of Lacazette, Umtiti, Tolisso, Gonalo, and all these, academy players. And then they went on to bigger and greater things. And I think he would have been perfect for this job because he is someone who gets, youth players. He knows how to utilize them to bring out the best in them, what type of styling play suits them best. I think maybe also someone like Claude Puel would have been a good appointment. But Galtier, he semi-reminds me of Harry Redknapp. I don't know.
That's probably one of the worst analogies you could possibly use with me, but I appreciate the point. Yeah.
How's your Ligue 1 experience been this season, Ross? Have you? Because obviously we talked about Bielsa and the Lille project, but have you managed to stick with watching a few games here and there?
I've caught a few of the current season. It's mainly the Sunday evening games, and they're normally PSG, which gets a bit boring after a while. But no, I've caught a few this season. I mean, my renaissance with Liga was back at the start of the season, or back at the start of the calendar year, I should say. And we may get onto like favourite moments and favourite goals in a bit, but honestly, I can't remember a moment outside of Southampton going to Wembley more vividly this season than I can when I was Cyprian scoring that free kick against PSG.
Yes.
The 2-2, I think that was January, February kind of time. I don't know why, but that free kick really stands out in my mind. And yeah, it's been good to watch. I think I probably would have stuck with Liga a bit more this season if Lille hadn't been so horrific. But with Galtier now coming in, I may pick them back up again in January and stick with it a bit more. But yeah, I mean, as a league, it's great fun to watch if you go into it recognizing that it's not going to be full of the same kind of names you get in the Premier League or the same kind of quality you might see consistently across La Liga. If you go into it with an open mind and just kind of take it as this is the French league, I think there's a lot of enjoyment to have out of it.
You picked the wrong team, though. Lille, of all teams.
Absolutely. My only justification for Lille is that the first time I ever really recognised the French league or knew of it was when Lille won the championship. Was it 2011? I want to say. And that was the first time I ever went, oh, cool, there's a French league. And that's a really dumb thing to say. But it was the first time I ever had that moment where I went, oh, yeah, cool, there's other big leagues in the world. Maybe I should give them a go. So Lille have always just kind of stuck in my head. They were the first big European story I can ever really remember.
Should have gone for Nice, Bordeaux.
I should have done, but if I'd gone for Nice, I would have been in the exact same position as I am with Lille right now.
Yeah, but at least they're entertaining and they have, good players.
I can understand the appeal of Lille. It was an underdog choice. I can understand that. We let Ross have that one.
But you're not the only one. I think most people who decided to pick a team in League One have gone, so probably because of Bielsa.
Yeah.
I did really enjoy Nice this year, though. I think Kris will be able to testify that when the start of the season, when I was trying to pick a team to follow to get me into Liga, it was a toss-up between Nice and Lille because Nice were just so much fun to watch with Playa and with Cyprian, with Jean-Michel Seri. I can't think for the life of me of the name of the right back. Is it Sarr?
Suke? Oh, Malang Sarr.
Malang Sarr. They had some really good players.
Well as well. I think this move to Nice has been really good. It's almost like sort of Ben Arfa, just the Balotelli's been consistently doing it.
His performances, maybe not on his stature, because I saw a link to Aston Villa this weekend. And if he ends up going to the Championship, that's probably his hopes of the Golden Boot gone.
And if anyone does find the whereabouts of Fatem Ben Arfa, then please do get in touch because we're
He's
still
in the
worried
U
about
team.
He's in Leicester, I think.
Yeah, I think he might be. Very, very strange one, that one. And of course, transfer business across all of our leagues will be ramping up soon. So, the joys of that we'll have to cover in amongst the January pods. So, stay tuned. We'll bring you all the ups and downs, probably more downs, as the leagues progress. Right, okay. Well, that's kind of just as we said, a completely unplanned kind of chat amongst the leagues and various teams that we cover. We could have gone on for hours and hours and hours, but we thought we'd save some time at the end of the show to answer some questions and maybe just pick out some highlights based off the questions. So I'm going to do my best to run through these. Josh and Ross, if you want to follow me onto the onto the Twitter account. If there's any I missed, then please do bring me up on those. There's a few amusing ones and a few really good ones. The first one we actually had was, as he scrolls down, here we go. It's from our friend Arian, who sent a couple in actually. He wanted to ask Ross specifically, what can Arsenal do as a club next season to improve? So we're looking at really far in advance, Ross, but yeah, I think you kind of touched on this earlier on, but anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, tyres all down to a long deal. Not just tying down, but to a contract. I think that would be the first thing. But I think the main thing is just making sure you've got the bedrock in place for when Wenger goes. For me, I think that's the key, because the thing that you definitely need is to change the hierarchy, but it's not going to happen. So you have to make the best of what you've got. And for me, I think the thing that has to be done at Arsenal next season going forward is put in that bedrock to make sure that when Arsene Wenger goes, which is hopefully at the end of his current deal, that they can then pick up and take on a new, exciting young manager that can take them on in the future. Now, I'm not sure who they're going to pick, and I'm not sure if the hierarchy are going to be looking for an exciting young manager, or if they're going to be going for same old, with maybe someone like an Ancelotti. But at the same time, you need to be planning for the future. And I think, like I said earlier, I think they kind of kneecapped themselves this year and kind of exposed the fact they didn't really have a plan for post-Wenger. So if we lived in an ideal world, it would be to change the hierarchy so that you might actually see some more conventional changes. But if that's not going to be possible, which it probably isn't, then you just need to make sure you make the best of what you've got. And I think that the eye should now be turning to the future and be turning to who comes in after and what pieces he gets to work with.
Yeah, well, so it's that question we get asked by all of the Arsenal followers on this podcast. It's a hard one to answer. The other question Arian asked, the next one above it, was team of the season so far, all of Europe. In the interest of time, we're going to scratch over that one slightly for now, because let's be honest, every podcast does that at this time of year. So we'll move on from that one, but we may well slide it into the New Year show at some point when we do one. I know that's one of Ross's favourites, so I'm going to save the next one. There's one from Jimmy, our good friend, and Nguna. What European footballers at a Christmas party would be most likely to end the night with trousers down, no trousers, the punch bowl in his head, and slow dancing with a Christmas tree? Our good friend Korosh replied with a picture of Jesse Lingard, which amused me greatly. Josh, anybody you can think of, or Lana, anybody you can think that might end up? Bentner is a good shout. Yeah, absolutely. Balotelli.
I couldn't. Well, it's the thing. You got to have someone with no self-control. Yeah, that's the problem. Neymar would probably have punched someone by then. It's Jesse Lingard. You're looking for your quintessential twat.
What about Bellerin?
No, I don't.
He's such a typical, posh lad. You just want to punch him in the face. One, because he's not a footballer because he's brainless. Two, because
I think that's harsh.
He's punchable.
He's certainly a bit of a wide boy. I'll give him that.
Yeah. I know he's retired.
And
retired, but I said Danny Osvaldo.
Oh, Danny Osvaldo is a perfect answer.
Then Abuwe is such a good shout out as well.
Oh, but you got to feel sorry for Abuwe because of what's come out today. Apparently, he is literally homeless, isn't he, and potless, and we
should go fund me page for him.
He's really having a tough time, bless him. So no, I mean I suppose there's some obvious examples. I'm trying to think of like modern day players that I could pick out, but I'm struggling. I'm trying to think of players that are in foreign leagues as well that would be potentially right
Alves?
For that. Dani Alves, yeah, absolutely, yeah, he'd be a perfect candidate for that. I'm trying to think of anybody in. Aubameyang would be another one.
Nainggolan.
I'd say Dries Mertens.
Dries,
because you're having someone that's a little bit fun. Nangolan's not fun. Nangolan's going to kill you.
What about Immobile then?
Maybe
Immobile. Don't know.
Looking for a bit of a joker.
Casemiro at Real Madrid, he'd be the sort of guy that would have a couple too many and start just two-footing people, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Sergio Ramos is another one, of course, that would, of course, be the life and soul of a party, I think. So, yeah.
And Griezmann.
Well, God knows what he'd do at a party based on the last week, but maybe he won't go there.
Should be banned from all future parties and events.
Yeah. So it's a good question, that.
Well, I've heard Chelsea are interested off the back of that photo.
Of course, I'm not surprised.
If they'll allow him on the tube, of course. Yes, good one. Okay, let's move swiftly onwards before we lose our one Chelsea fan who follows us, maybe. Bobby Checkerboard, you wanted to ask standout players in your respective leagues. Again, I mean, you could go on for hours on this one, but anybody from your respective leagues we follow? I mean, I'm struggling to think of. I mean, there is so many.
Hassan Mouar.
Awar is an obvious one, yeah. I think Leon. Malcolm, yeah, we had a question actually about Malcolm, which came in, which I'll get to in a second. But I think in terms of France, most of the Leon side, Luis Gustavo has returned to form at
Toivonen. He's deserves a
Toivonen,
shot. Yeah, he's been excellent.
Been reborn. I think in terms of sort of the bigger clubs, I mean, Keita Balde's finding his feet all of a sudden at Monaco.
Cavani.
Yeah, have to mention Cavani. Yeah, absolutely. 1 goal,
that
2
goal,
goals
that
off.
goal he scored the other day was
On the back
So-
flick.
Oh,
Yeah,
still.
so nice.
Oh, the one he
That
went
plays
for
fine
with
as
his right foot, but missed. That
And
one.
then flicked him with his
Yeah, that one.
vintage Cavani.
Love you, George.
Vintage Cavani. You gotta
Yeah.
love him.
I would say Mbappe, just for a player of 2017 as well.
His meteoric rise continues. Isn't
What a phenomenon he is. Basically since the turn of the year, wasn't it? Because it was around this time of year that he really started getting into that Monaco team.
About
And
this
he
time last year that only Kris knew about him, and now suddenly everyone does.
Yeah. I should take no credit. there.
Excuse me.
I was going to say I wasn't the only one, was I, Lana?
Oh
But
yeah, sorry.
people
Arsene Wenger was round his house 2 years ago before
having
tapping
a
him
cup
up.
of tea. Yeah.
But what about
and Giggs. And Giggs apparently he
Dembele?
asked him to sign Mbappe and
Oh, of
Jesus
course.
for Midland. So yeah.
Yeah.
Dembele, before he got injured, I would say he was better than Mbappe. I know I'm going to get tons of abuse for this, but whatever. Screw you all.
Which is not going to abuse you, but I think that's a bold.
Dortmund.
Oh, Ousmane Dembele.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that's
You
that's
bold.
can
all
give-
I'm
you
saying,
can-
and we're going to have an
yeah, you
argument
can-
because Celtic is not the acid test that kid needs.
No, but in Dembele, he's been unlucky. But I think that injury-free, he could rival Mbappe for, yeah. I'm just gonna shut up because I'm gonna get abused, and I have a very peaceful Twitter life right now. I don't want to change that.
Hey, you stick with what you say. I mean, there's a few others. Looking at looking at Spain as well. Paulinho would have to get a shout for Barcelona.
Yeah,
Simone Zatsa, Gonzalo Guedes at Valencia.
Ben Yedder.
Ben Yedder, absolutely, yeah. Bakambu at Villarreal's had a sterling season. Christian Stuani, who Ross and Josh will remember, he's having a lovely time at Girona.
Ben
William
Malen
Jose,
for his clean
For
sheet
Malen,
against
yeah.
Madrid.
all of a sudden has come out of the woodwork, as it were.
For England, I'd probably say Raheem Sterling.
Absolutely, yeah.
This season he's been staggeringly good, and he's probably the highlight of Pep's reign so far.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
been so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Benjamin Mendy for his social media, definitely up there. Any EFL players as well. The lad at Sheffield United, whose name escapes me every time.
Brooks at Sheffield United. I would say across the year it's probably Sessegnon. Across the season it's probably been Bonatini at Wolves.
Yeah, Bonatini's
Yeah.
been
I was going to go
superb,
with Jota, but
Oh yeah,
same.
Jota's been fantastic as
What
well.
about
Yeah.
Joe Hart?
Yeah.
maybe not.
He was in flop of the season so far. Him, Alexis, Lindelof.
There's
There
been a
is
few.
there is a rumour that West Ham are going to terminate his loan in January, stick with Adrian as their goalkeeper, and that Joe
I
Hart
wouldn't
go
be
to Aston
surprised.
Villa.
Aston
I wouldn't
Villa.
be surprised.
They got Sam Johnson, haven't they? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Strange one, that one. But and of course a nod to Mick McCarthy's press conferences as well. That's always something you have to mention on
And
these-
Conte's Rage episodes as well.
Yes.
Those are always funny.
Actually, I think if we're talking press conferences, it can't really beat Carlos Carvajal a couple of weeks ago when he took a £20 note out of his pocket and
Yeah.
said, "This is £20." Crumpled it up, punched it on the desk, and said, "It's still worth £20." That was
Yeah.
a pretty good press conference.
and has since been sacked. We should stress, or since walked away from the club. So yeah, not good. And of course Gary Monk also gone from Middlesbrough in the last 24 hours as well. Okay, so there's a few goodies. Richard Grant, you can have both of these, Lana. Richard Grant wanted to ask about a player, as did the gentleman who asked about Malcolm. Who was the gentleman who asked about Malcolm? I'm
It
trying to
was
find it.
Extreme Dons.
Yes, Yusuf.
Wanted to
Yeah.
know
His name is
about,
Extreme Dance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wanted to
Twitter
know how he'd
handle.
fit in Twitter handle. How he'd
Yeah,
fit in
how-
at Man United.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I could probably answer that one. He wouldn't, because Mourinho wouldn't play a French winger in his correct position and rely on him and allow him to express himself, would he, Anthony Martial? So I could probably answer that one. But no, in all seriousness, I just don't think that would be a good fit. He's a very young, raw player. He's a player that I think will come very good, but I think it's probably a bit too soon for a move of that level. I'd like to see Malcolm at a
City.
No, I wouldn't like to see him that high. I don't think he's ready yet. I think he's been...
But potentially future. Like, I would like him to stay a couple more seasons. But after... In England, I think he'd do well under Guardiola.
Yeah, I mean, either that or go to a mid-range European club where he can express himself and adapt.
Germany.
Yeah, somewhere in Germany, somewhere in Italy, maybe. I just think, given what Bordeaux have done, he can't carry one team on his back forever. And, I think Man United would be too big a step up. Technically, he's good enough, but...
Mourinho would ruin him.
Well, look at Mkhitaryan. I mean, if he can't get the side, Malcolm isn't getting in for me. So, what do you reckon about? This is the other question, Lana, which you can have from Richard Grant. What do you make of Issa Diop at Toulouse? I'm more of a Julian fan myself, but do you like Diop?
Yeah, I was talking to Rich about it actually a week ago when we were talking about centre backs for Arsenal. Because there were rumors about Koscielny being done and dusted. We should, that Wenger should seek out replacements. And he was one of the players we thought should go to Arsenal, along with Clement Langley from, where does he play again? Sevilla?
Yes,
yeah.
Indeed, yeah.
Basically, Wenger going all French again.
I would rather Julien. He reminds me of he's like a sort of a French style Rio Ferdinand without the moronic things that are said sometimes. That's probably harsh, but no, I just think
I like him. I think he's doing well. Do I think he's ready? For us to go to a big club? Ups and downs. If I was to think of someone that would leave to take the next big step, it would be Malang Sarr. Solely because he's been linked to he's been scouted by Barcelona. Arsenal have been scouting him several times. I think even Juve were to scout him. He would be my pick if he was to be moved to a big club. But I like Diop. I don't know if he is good enough yet, but I like him.
A little mention for Nyang'nyong as well at Rennes, who's another really up and coming, obviously centre half. So there's quite a few out there, definitely out there, and it's an interesting one. That he's definitely physical enough for the Premier League, if that's what you're looking at, Richard. So yeah, he would be an option. Rattle through a couple of quick ones here. Mike Hernandez, our good friend, has recently got married. Congratulations, Mike. Player of the season so far for Arsenal. Oh, crikey. It's a bit of a tough one, that, because there hasn't been many standouts. I think probably
Aaron Ramsey.
Well,
Lacazette, I'd always said.
I always said Aaron Ramsey.
Yeah.
Ramsey or Mesut would be the two I'd probably pick out.
But Lacazette showed up in big games, though. Either scored or assisted. And for people who would label him as he doesn't show up in big games, well, screw you all. Let me see if Lukaku does the same. No.
Oh, don't take the leash off that particular box. That will all go
off. And did you see his back heel for Ozil's goal against Liverpool?
Oh yes, you don't have to sell me. You know I'm smitten. I'd also give a little nudge for Nacho Monreal as well, actually, who's been consistently very good for most of the calendar year overall. So, good one. What else we got here? I'm saving one of Tom's for last because I know Ross has got lots on that one. Scrolling up, Pete Cunley wanted to say that we're one of his top 5 podcasts. So thank you very much, Pete. Hope it's all good in Australia. Little shout out for Goonies in the USA as well, who are another friends of ours, as are of course a Birdcat Wonderland, who I'm a bit of a part of, as is Josh. What else we got here? And we had a couple actually come in very late. Ariane also chipped in with this one. Who's the most overrated and underrated player in the world? Overrated meaning players people rate too highly, and underrated meaning players who don't value them enough. You could all. You read my
Who
mind.
Did you say?
Lukaku.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Pogba.
No.
Oh shit!
I think Pogba's actually underrated this season. I think people kind of forget how good he's actually been for Manchester United, because Pogba only cost £90 million. I think he's actually been better than people give him credit for this year. But for me, Lukaku is by far and away the most overrated player, and I love Lukaku.
And Bakayoko.
Yeah,
He
Bakayoko
is-
for 40
yeah.
million.
He was deemed like the signing of the summer, and Conte thought he was going to be, his Vidal. But then again,
Here's one I don't get. I don't know if any of you guys feel the same with this. A lot of people, I like him as a player. I genuinely do, even though he's at Chelsea. A lot of people are lauding Morata. I don't think he's been that great for Chelsea. Is it just me, or
He's not a very.
Go on, Josh.
I was going to say he's not a very flashy player. I think that's what it
No.
is. He is a very.
but he does the job.
Yeah, he's so efficient
Does he?
that you don't notice it. I think
missed
so.
a lot of chances though?
I know it's because they didn't go to his head.
Mm.
And you can say that against any striker. It's they get a goal every game, but they're normally needing 6 or 7 shots to get that goal. If you're Lukaku, 15. If you're Cavani, more.
40.
Exactly.
I think one of the problems you're going to have with this though, Chris, is that you watch a lot of European football, and you will have watched Morata at Juventus.
Yeah, he
Lana
was
will have
really
as well.
good.
And
Yeah.
at Juventus, he was brilliant. He was as good
Yeah,
as I've
Especially
ever
in the
seen.
Champions League. He sent us to the final against
Yeah.
his, boyhood team.
Yeah.
And still Juve fans would bring him back in a heartbeat because he has that Champions League mentality.
I
The
think,
reason...
yeah,
Go on.
I think one of the problems that people face who have seen players out in Europe is that when they come to talking to their friends at work about Morata or down the pub, those kinds of viewers will have only watched the Premier League, and they will look at Morata and say, "Oh, what a brilliant signing he's been." And then for people who've seen him at Juventus, they'll say, "Well, he's been good, but." And because we've seen him do so well elsewhere, so yeah, he's been good for Chelsea, but
He
I don't
can
think
do
he's
better.
been- yeah, he's not there yet, and by the sounds of things, he's only going to be there a year, maybe 2. I think he's already got his eye on Italy from what we heard at the start of the season. So
I think
if
he's
he only
coming
has
back
a year
home.
there, and he has 15 goals by the end of the season. He's had a fine season, but he's not had the Juventus seasons that everyone on this
Yeah.
podcast and all of our listeners will have known him to have had.
I think he would have had it if he'd had a partner like Llorente, Tevez. He's not a man you would trust to lead the team.
But that's what they've had to
He's-
move their team about, and they've had to bring Hazard right next to him and move to a 2
Because
up
he
front.
needs that. It's like basically if you would play Trezeguet without Del Piero. He needs a partner. He's not capable yet to lead a team on his own.
I can't understand for the life of me why they don't favour Batshuayi more, and why he hasn't been tried out a bit more with Morata. I don't think they would.
Conte
dovetail
doesn't like him.
beautifully as well. But I just like I say, if it's a personal thing, then okay, but let him go in the summer. It seems strange to have clung on to him, especially when Costa was already on his way out as well. Raise some finance and go get someone else if you didn't like him. But I think Batshuayi is a player that could probably help get Morata out of his shell and get a bit more out of him. I don't think they dovetail as smoothly as some other players might have, but I think Batshuayi is certainly good enough to get some more out of him.
Yeah, I
he's-
agree.
He's ripe for a move back to Marseille in January. I think he's
Yeah, Marseille needs a striker.
Needs a
Hopefully he
forward.
doesn't, because we need to secure second.
It's again, it's another difficult question to answer because we wanted to do this unplanned. I suppose if we'd have had more time to research, we might have come up with some answers. But no, it's a difficult one.
I'd say underrated this season. Decore at Watford.
Oh yeah, it's been very good. Yeah,
He
Antonio
is
Lopez at
literally
Juve.
running that team. Literally
Yeah.
running Watford. Everything goes through him, which is why Watford was so bad against Brighton this weekend.
when he wasn't there. Yeah, I think
just
I agree.
suspended.
I might throw a cheeky one in for underrated as well and say Santi Cazorla, because I think
Oh, yeah.
this year
That's too
you
much.
have exposed his influence in that Arsenal team.
Oh,
across
he's-
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he doesn't get enough respect or credit. People were like, because I said it when he got injured, and
He's
the reason
huge.
Arsenal collapsed was because of him.
Yeah.
It wasn't because they were a striker short, blah 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 blah. Because you could get the goals, but you needed someone like him, and the fact that Wenger didn't bring in a replacement for him, fully aware of his injuries, that was poor on Wenger's part.
I mean, no one expects his injury to get to the level that it is. That's
But you
the
still
only
need
issue.
a backup plan. You
So
need a
there
backup
is
plan.
there is backups available now. We've got Jack Wilshere and Xhaka came in, both there to dictate tempo, not necessarily to the level that Santi did. And
No.
to be fair, Santi came in as a replacement of the Arteta role after Arteta moved away. That Santi then dropped into that position.
Neither of them.
However, he hasn't
level.
played in over 365 days, so I don't know if we can use him for a 2017 review.
I
No,
doubt.
I think it's cheeky for me to throw him in, but I think his absence has shown
Yeah.
how
Absolutely.
important he was, and that classes him as underrated, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I
I
agree.
mean, there's plenty of others you could throw in, because I think nearly every single good defensive midfielder in the world is underrated, because no one cares about that position anymore. It's all about the front three, and can you all dovetail, and can you score 6 goals a game? I think players like Romeu or Idrissa
Yeah.
Gueye, or even Morgan Schneiderlin these days, he's not as good as he was, but I think these kinds of players, in that bracket, I think they're underrated by the fans of their teams, and that goes for every country in Europe, I think.
There is
I would
one
say Rabiot.
overrated. I can think of an overrated holding midfielder though. He plays in blue in London, and Lana
Go
will
on.
agree with me immediately as soon as I say Kante.
Oh yeah. Oh my god,
so
I love you,
overrated.
Josh.
So overrated. If you
I'll
have
get
a look
hate if I go
at,
for this, but yeah, we do.
at Leicester, I think they've got 2 better holding midfielders in. Is it Ndidi and Amati?
It pisses me off that people say that he was the reason they won the league. Because
I mean, he
it
certainly
wasn't.
helped.
He did. He did. No doubt about it. But then you need to give a shout out to Wardy, Mahrez, who still needs to move to a bigger club because he's underappreciated.
I think one of the things that does enforce this idea that Kante was overrated is the fact that Chelsea went out and bought his partner in the summer to try and get more out of him. And Drinkwater has barely featured this season, but they went after him, and everyone wondered why. And I do wonder if it's because they thought, well, we need to get Kante back to where he was at Leicester, and the only way to do that is to recreate what Leicester had.
Yeah. The issue is that they have with that really is that Chelsea are expected to dictate play, and at that point Kante is not really required. What made Leicester so good was Kante would win the ball, play it back to Drinkwater, who would then ping the ball forward, break the defensive line with Vardy and Mahrez in behind. And like you see the goal that they scored, the first goal this weekend against United, which was a big ball out from, I can't think who played it out. I think it was Amate. Just a big long ball forward, a carefully placed long ball, but it completely broke the defensive line of Man United. Mahrez comes in from the wing, picks it up, and waits for his mate. While Smalling's defensive ability is a whole podcast in itself, but managed to lay it off to Vardy, who just puts it past De Gea. That's what made Kante and Drinkwater incredible. And I think they're slowly getting back to that now, and I think, like we alluded to earlier, that's what Puel almost needed when he was at at Southampton. Why he said that he wanted a player like Damari Gray so much, who really, I think personally fits the Southampton mould. So I have no idea why they never actually managed to get that over the line.
Don't get me started. They bought him for about £1.5 million, and I was screaming for Southampton to do that deal when we missed out to bloody Leicester.
I believe I was screaming out for Arsenal to do it. Everybody that had seen him
Ridiculous.
down at Birmingham, he is a player. If anybody from an Arsenal point of view is having a go at Theo Walcott, please just have a look at Damari Gray, because I wanted him as a replacement.
I liked him as well. I must admit, as a raw player, raw gem in there. And the only other holding midfielder I can think of that may be up for grabs potentially in January is Steven Nzonzi, who's had a bit of a rebirth of form.
Isn't he linked to Arsenal?
He has been. He's been linked with a few. He's fallen out severe, but now the coach has gone. That obviously could change things. So we will see. But yeah, that's probably one to keep a little eye on as well, maybe.
Speaking of underrated players, I have 2 in mind. Rabiot hasn't got the credit he deserves, mostly from his fans as well. Because, all the hype and glory and support goes to Mbappe and Neymar. And Lopez from Lyon. I think if Arsenal were to go for a goalkeeper, he should be the one.
I've always been a big fan of Lopez as well. Every time I've seen him, he's always looked like a really athletic goalkeeper. I'm not sure we've got too many athletic goalkeepers in the Premier League these days. But I've always
And
been
he
a big
would
fan
be
of
set
Lopez.
for a decade as well. Because he's only 24 or something.
Yeah,
they always say that they mature around 31, don't they?
Yeah, the only athletic goalkeeper I can think of in the Premier League, first choice, is Adrian. He loves to save for the cameras.
I would also put De Gea in there, but
Ooh, yeah, that's true.
I think it's a
it
borderline
depends.
one.
Yeah,
But I think you remember when he started and he was all legs.
Yeah,
That's the De Gea I remember, and these days he's a bit more mature. But
I think he still goes with legs, but the thing that Jose Mourinho is very good at is making sure that the shots that do go through meet the strengths of the goalkeeper that's in behind. And that's what we saw with the difference between Petr Cech at Chelsea and Petr Cech at Arsenal. That his weaknesses were exposed.
Sorry. Little cough there. I do apologise.
All right. Yeah, let's say his weaknesses were exposed at Arsenal because Arsenal allow shots in from anywhere. So you need a multifaceted goalkeeper. Whereas Jose manages to make sure that if a ball comes in, that it will play to the strength of the goalkeeper. So he doesn't allow crosses because De Gea is awful on crosses. But you'll very rarely see one come in, or he'll build a team around it. So if you look at, I know it was a stat that went through at the beginning of the season, the average height of the Manchester United team, that's not to be powerful and imposing, that's to deal with corners because De Gea can't. And that's where, so I'm not saying De Gea is a bad goalkeeper, every goalkeeper has got a massive flaw in their game. It's just how the team builds around that.
So there we. I do apologise because obviously we say this podcast is unscripted. The wonderful word of my doorbell intercepted me there, so I do apologise. Did we get to the end of that question then?
I believe so. We were on acrobatic goalkeepers.
Ah, I didn't even see that question. That's a new one for me.
Lopez being the number one.
Naturally, yes. Not Mandanda. Strange. I think we've got time just for 2 more questions then, and they're actually both from Pat. I think. I hope I haven't missed. If I've missed any questions, please somebody nudge me. But the last one I'm going to leave for Ross. But let's have this one from Pat, which is I can't find it. Oh, here it is. Pick a Premier League player for each who you'd want to grab a pint with, who you'd like to grab a coffee date with, and who you'd like to play a round of billiards against. So, Lana, you can have a pint with somebody. Josh, you can grab a coffee with somebody. And Ross, you can play billiards with somebody. So, Premier League only. Who wants to go first?
I will take Shane Long because he couldn't hit a ball with a sofa cushion, let alone a billiard cue.
So, to guarantee that you'd win, that's fair enough. Josh, who are you taking for a coffee?
Oh.
Can you take someone for a beer? I don't even like beer.
Okay, do you want to take
No,
someone
fine.
for a coffee and I'll take them for a beer?
Yeah, that's fine.
Who would I take for a pint? Aaron Ramsey.
After yesterday.
I would go Aaron Ramsey. I was thinking about Jack Wilshere, but I just know it would just it would get out of hand too quickly.
It would get out of hand, yeah.
You'd end up in
yeah, exactly.
on Wiltshire.
We'd end up in Sugar Hut or something mad.
Or on the front page of the Daily Mirror or something, yeah.
So I'll stick with Aaron Ramsey. We're about the same age. I reckon we've got a lot in common. Both West Country boys.
Okay, fair enough. Who are you going to take for coffee then, Lana?
I mean, does it come as a surprise to anyone?
It can't be Fekir. It can't. No, it's got to be a Premier League player, I'm afraid. Or you're going to say Lacazette, then, aren't you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
If it wasn't Lacazette, who?
I would probably go with Mesut Ozil, just because I think we'd have a really nice time, in a non-sexual way, just so everyone knows.
Yeah, just to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to throw mine into the hat, I'd take Arsene Wenger for coffee.
He's not a player, otherwise I would have taken him. That's not fair.
He's not a player.
That's not fair.
No.
All right then. Okay.
Sorry,
Well, in that. Okay.
I'll tell you, you can have though, Chris. You can have Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. He is a very intelligent kid. Very
no, because he'd show me up probably, wouldn't he? He'd probably show me up.
Can you go tap up James Ward-Prowse for us?
Yeah, he's a nice lad. Yeah, we can take him.
James alone.
If I was to take a non-Arsenal Premier League player for a coffee, I suppose that's probably a better question because obviously I don't drink, so I don't know who I would take. Probably because I do love Zlatan.
I can't believe I didn't.
I know. I think probably because I have this thing against other players of other teams. There's not many players I like at other teams generally. As a rule, I just don't like.
So Harry Kane is a no-go.
Yeah, absolutely not. Unless I can throw him off a bridge. But yeah, the less said about that, the better. Before it becomes libelous. But yeah, no, I probably Zlatan is probably the one actually. Because I mean, imagine the stories. So
good shout out.
Yes, absolutely right. Let's finish with this question then before we let everybody enjoy what will probably be their Christmas day by now, or they might be listening to this. I don't know when they're going to be listening to this, but whenever you're listening to it, thank you. So, Ross, I'm going to give this one to you first, and if anybody else wants to chime in, they can. It's an excellent question from Pat Ormsby, part of our MLS crew over in the US of A. How do you make being a football fan fun when it might start not being fun. I've started watching more Championship over the English Premier League to change it up and keep things more interesting. Maybe start watching more teams as a neutral. Thoughts? So you had this already in your head, didn't you, Ross, when you saw this question? So you've gone through similar with Southampton, am I right in saying?
Yeah, 2017 has not been a good year for me as a football fan. Like I said earlier in my Southampton rant, the only thing I've really got to shout about is a Wembley trip, which we didn't deserve to lose. So I've had a rough year with Saints, and when Saints don't do well, obviously it puts me in a bad mood with the rest of football, and I'm sure everyone's the same with their teams. When Arsenal aren't doing well, when Lyon aren't doing well, you kind of just don't want to watch the rest of the games for the rest of the weekend. So I've had a pretty poor year, and I have to say my interest in the Premier League has probably been as low as it has ever been, not just because of Southampton, but because Pep is here now. And as much as I like him as a coach, one of the things I find so boring about him is he will just strangle a division and it will be done. For 3 years, it's Pep's division. So I'm not really interested in the title race anymore, and the relegation zone includes my team. So the Premier League hasn't really excited me, and that's one of the biggest leagues in the world and easily the biggest league in my country. So I completely appreciate that sometimes you just lose interest in the sport a little bit, but there's always that part of you that still loves it and still wants to just find a way back into it. And I know obviously, I was talking earlier about the Championship, and you could probably tell just how much I enjoy that division. But my advice to anyone that's going through similar is to isolate what it is you love about football and find it wherever it may be, whether it's in a lower division or whether it's in Holland or even in Japan or Vietnam, wherever you find it. Go and watch their division, because for me, I like competition. That's what I love. That's what I love in sport. Now, if a team wants to dominate 7-0, like for example we had on the weekend where Wigan put 7 past Oxford, great. That's fine by me, because League One is open enough and competitive enough for those to be aberrations, and me to look at those kinds of results and go, wow, what an incredible result. Rather than in the Premier League, where a team like Man United will win 4-0 one weekend, you'll see the fixture list next weekend. Oh, they're away at Swansea. That's going to be another 4-0. So for me, it's competition, and for me, the best league in the world for competition is the Championship. So I isolated what I loved about the sport, and I found it in my division. And every time Southampton let me down, I turn on a Championship game, and I'm right back in the saddle. So regardless of what it is you love about football, whether it's the aesthetics and you just love tiki-taka football and quick passing and along the ground, then try to watch more La Liga or even some Eredivisie, which is very technical. If you like tight title races, then Italy is the one for you this year. If you like watching a division get absolutely strangled by one club who's at the absolute apex of their time as a club, then maybe you go and watch PSG this year. But all it takes is just to find what it is you love about football, and just to find it wherever it is in the world. Go and find it and watch as much of it as you can, and just savor the bit of football that you love the most. And if that's just your team, then fine. You just have to unfortunately suffer through the worst of it. But there's always an aspect of football that people buy into, and whether it's the stories, whether it's the competitiveness, whether it's just seeing a team at their absolute best, there's always an example of it somewhere. So don't just isolate yourself with, well, this year I'm watching PSG, so next year I'm going to be watching them as well. If PSG turn to crap next season, then go and find another team to go and get the same kind of enjoyment out of. Just keep your eyes open and follow that one thing that you love about the sport. And I guarantee you, anytime you get let down, there will be a division, there will be a game somewhere that will bring you right back in.
I can't add anything to that. I think that's perfectly answered. Is there anything at all on your side, Josh, that you can think of?
No, I don't think there's anything I could really say. Lana, did you say you wanted to grab something on this question?
No, I was just because I did what Ross just said perfectly. Because when Percy left, I had to detach myself from everything that was football. And I started watching Lyon more than I already did. And I also started picking teams in the different leagues, like Sevilla, Bayern Munich, Leipzig, and all these teams, just to, take my focus off my favorite teams. I did the same with France as well, because that was just 2016 was just a horrible year for me. And if anyone would say what the worst moment for me this year was, it would be that Deschamps got an extension again. But it's a brilliant advice, and I would recommend anyone to just go pick several teams and don't get so heartbroken every time.
Yeah, we all have our one team that we love and support through thick and thin, but it's sometimes nice to expand your horizons a little bit and have a look at other teams in and around the world or Europe, or wherever you may be. So, excellent question, Pat, and what a perfect way to round off a festive special. We did have, I think we did have a question about putting together an 11 of festive players like Gabriel Jesus and Angel Di Maria, and I think most of them were named. I couldn't think of any others that off the top of my head that were festive.
Rocky Santa Cruz.
Oh yes, I think he might have been mentioned actually. I must find the tweet actually to give the person credit who sent it in. I can't remember who it was. I don't know whether they sent it to me personally or not, but somebody definitely asked me for a festive 11. I really can't remember who it was. So
I think it's everyone who plays for, and if I can get the team name right, Lapland FC, who play in the Finnish third division.
Oh wow!
There we go. Sorry, I might out-hipstered you there.
It doesn't get any more festive than that, does it?
Okay.
I mean, that's
they do have Santa on the badge as well.
Do they really?
Yeah.
I suppose it makes sense, doesn't it, to have that? But I don't know where that question's gone. I definitely saw it. I'm not making it up. Somebody definitely asked us to put together a festive 11, and do you know where it was? It was in my email. I think it was in my email. Hang on, here we go. There, yes, it was our good friend Jasper Robbins. Sorry, Jasper. See, I nearly forgot you there. He did ask a question about Alex Iwobi and Hector Bellerin getting loads of stick at Arsenal. I'll answer that on my own Twitter account if you like, Jasper. I'll chat to you about that one. But yeah, just a bit of fun. Can you make a festive 11? Some examples would be Jesus Navas, Juan Pablo Angel, and Roque Santa Cruz.
Nice. I've got it wrong anyway.
Moses?
Sorry, it was FC Santa Claus. FC Santa Claus that played in the Finnish third division.
Are you having Victor Moses Basket this time of year? No,
completely different.
Okay,
Wrong
not having
one.
that one then. That's more Bible based. I
suppose.
suppose.
You can have Lukaku because he's a donkey, and one of those was in the stable.
that's fair. And tends to kick the ball out of the stable. Yeah. Josh King, 3 Kings.
Yeah, you can have Marlon and Ledley as well.
Marlon Ledley, yeah, okay.
And then the 3 wise men, you can have as Arsene Wenger.
Any advance on that? Any other additions? Any other festive footballers? I think we've hit a roadblock, haven't we?
Gabriel Jesus.
Oh, he's already mentioned them. He's already gone with them. So I don't think we can.
No.
Yeah, I don't think we got any advance on any of those, to be honest.
Well, I suppose Gabriel Jesus covers too. Got the Angel Gabriel in there as well.
Yeah. But anything Angel is too obvious, isn't it?
Gabriel Paulista.
Gabriel, yeah, but again, or Gabriel.
Angel Di Maria.
Yeah, we had him. No, I think. Oh, Andy Carroll, you could have. Could you have Andy Carroll?
Yeah.
Does that count? Yeah, we'll have Andy Carroll. But other than that, I can't think of any. Oh, actually, no. I've just had one other one. Old Coventry striker Noel Whelan. Can you have? No? Okay. Right, I think that seems to be the point where we're going to end this. So we will. Thank you for the question, though, Jasper. Excellent stuff. Right, okay. We will draw a line there under this bumper festive edition of our podcast. It's probably a good 2 hours of your life you're never going to get back. So apologies if you felt that way, but hopefully you've enjoyed it. We wanted to release something around this time of year because not everybody is full of festive cheer. Not everybody has somebody, and not everybody has plans. So some people just like to stick a podcast in their ears and shut off for a couple of hours. So hopefully we've provided you with some light relief if you are one of these people, or indeed if you just want an excuse to get away from your family for a couple of hours. Because let's be honest, we all get a bit sick of it after a while, don't we? So there we go. Thanks, of course. This is our last podcast of 2017. I will say that right off the bat now. We're going to take a little bit of a break as well. We will be back in the new year, but it won't be immediate. We're probably going to look to return sort of mid-January because a lot of us as part of the pod have all got a lot of work commitments coming up as well. So we will be back, promise, back to our sort of Monday slot, probably mid-January. Likely to be the 2nd or 3rd week of January, probably more likely to be the 3rd week, but we'll keep you posted. So keep an eye on our Twitter timeline. And big thanks to all the crew that have been part of this, even those that are not around. Our good friend James just got hoping to come on board a little bit more next year. Of course, John, for putting everything together. We still keep in touch with Kelly, who did some research on the pod from before, our old producer Gaz as well. And of course, Joel, who's not with us this evening, but is a regular podcaster as well. And of course, my regular cohorts this evening to Lana, Ross and Josh as well. So we will be back in 2017.
18.
And 18, sorry, yes, it's 17 now, that wouldn't work. And I'll just give our opportunity for our panellists just to say anything they want to say. So, Lana, anything you'd like to say as we close out our festive special?
Just Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Don't drink too much, and if you do, be careful.
Yes, well said. Ross, anything from you?
No, nothing else to add except have a happy holiday. We'll see you again in 2018.
Indeed we will. And Josh?
No, I'll just echo everyone else's sentiments, and also just it could be worse. You could be having to work on Christmas Day. And
Yes,
for all those that are,
That's what
hope
I'm
you have
doing
a good
tomorrow.
Christmas.
That's a very, very good point. It could be worse. But yes, that's a perfect way to draw a line then under the podcast for this year. Thank you all so much. Genuinely, without you guys and girls listening to us, it would just be us waffling on, which, granted, that's fine. But we appreciate each and every download, each and every click, each and every tweet, everything you send to us. We really appreciate it. So keep it coming in 2018. If you haven't already, give us a review on iTunes or give us a little nudge on SoundCloud. Or you can track us on our Twitter account as usual. But yeah, iTunes reviews are really, really helpful to us because it helps us get out to a larger audience of people who may not know that we're around. I know, who'd have thought you could believe that people wouldn't know we're around, but we aren't. To some people, they won't know who we are. So we are very much amateur. We don't get paid to do this. It's all out of our own time. So please do share the love, tell some friends, give us a review, and hopefully we'll find our way into more ears in 2018. But for now, thank you very, very much to my panellists. You're all lovely. Thank you all.
And to you.
And to you.
And as we said all along, season's greetings to you all. Have a fantastic Christmas and New Year period. We'll see you in 2018. Keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy, and we'll speak to you very soon.